Good evening, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our instantly after the episode. There's something on my microphone. It's making me crazy. Instantly after the after the episode, spoiler review, discussion, and wild speculation of Agatha All Along. This is episodes 8 and 9 together. 8 is called Follow Me, My Friend, to Glory at the End, which is the false finale. And then the episode 9 was called Maiden Mother Crone. I want to start off with two things before we kind of go into like the discussion of the episodes.
Okay.
One, Catherine fucking Hahn.
Yeah. I have so many emotions.
That's the post. Like,
I have so many emotions about Agatha. Like, you love her, you hate her, you feel sorry for her, you want to punch her in the taint. I mean, she's just like, she's all over the place, and I don't know how to feel about her.
I think that's the point.
Oh, I think it's the point too.
But it's she does such a magnificent job. And someone who is more traditionally known for comedic roles.
Yeah.
And Agatha is a comedic kind of character.
Yeah.
A funny kind of character,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But the episode with Nicholas and that whole her time with her and just
Him,
her time with him, with them. I don't know what their pronouns are. It was the 1600s. Just a chef's kiss, and what she, as the lead of the show, her character is the name of the show.
right?
Her being the lead of the show, being the number one on the call sheet, what she brought trickled down to everyone else who showed up on the show.
Yeah.
Everyone was there to give everything they had for this stupid comic book show about witches. Lesbian witches, sorry. And I just, it shouldn't be taken. Some people are going to say it shouldn't be taken this seriously, and that's why it works so well. Is that they took it seriously. They took the ridiculousness of it, and presented it in a completely legit. We're in this 100%. No winks and nods. We believe this 100%.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about just the basic. You're talking about they opened up a hatch in her basement and went on this Yellow Brick Road tour.
Yeah.
Just the basic premise of the whole show is ridiculous. So if you're gonna, just embrace it.
Embrace it. We didn't talk about this last episode, but we have talked about it in previous episode reviews, is the cast itself being open to just being dirty because they're on the road and covered in mud.
Yeah,
I
think you did bring it up the last one.
Maybe it was the last one.
Patty LaPone being covered in mud the entire time.
I want to rewatch the show because what we're going to talk about in a minute, they went for it, and everything hit, including this. It can't be called anything else. Awkward 2-part finale, because the big final fight was in episode 8,
right?
And the resolution was done,
right?
Why the series happened, everything that happened, why, who created the road, Billy, like everything that happened was resolved. Oh wait, there's another episode to go, and they come back and they tell Agatha's not origin story, because we already kind of had that.
Right.
This was her time with Nicholas.
Right. Which, I feel like they had to discuss. They had to show the fans, right, what happened,
and why it happened.
Yeah, just it wraps it all up. It's like a postscript, right?
Yeah.
The show was episodes 1 through 8, and then here's it's
The
like
epilogue.
the epilogue, the postscript. Here's a 40-minute mid credit scene.
We watched all the way through the credits hoping that White Vision would show up. I'm glad he didn't show up. I'm also a little disappointed. But yeah, you're right. This was a 40-minute post-credit scene.
Yeah, yeah. I think that I was just thinking about it, that they did not address how Agatha actually got the Darkhold, because they talked about it all through.
Yeah,
that
that's fair.
The rumor was that she sold her son's life basically for the Darkhold, and even towards the end, Aubrey Plaza's Rio death, whatever, alluded to the fact that are you gonna ever tell them what really happened?
Right.
And so we got the whole, this is how Nicholas came about. This is how the song came about, but we never ever talked about. So I was like sitting there thinking about it. I was like, wait a minute. So then how did she get the Darkhold?
So that is kind of sort of addressed in WandaVision, if I remember correctly. Now, it's been a minute since we've watched WandaVision for the 17th time. But in the episode of Agatha's origin story, her coven ties her to the stake.
Right.
Her mother and her coven ties her to the stake.
Right.
And she says in there something along the line of, the book came to me and it bent to my will. I didn't do anything wrong. And so there's something in there that we haven't been told about the Darkhold.
Right.
And now, you're right. I would have liked to have had that.
I'm not really saying that I'm not. It's not that I'm missing it, or like.
Yeah.
If they had not explained what happened with Nicholas,
that's a bigger deal.
I would have felt a little, lost because of that. But it was just like, kind of a wait a minute,
hanging Chad of what's going on. We're satisfied with everything, but we still have this question of this thing hanging over here.
Yeah.
And I think too, at least from fans' perspective of opening that possibility of conversations about the Darkhold and what the ramifications of all that is, adds more questions to what Wanda did in destroying all the copies of the Darkhold. They kind of addressed that in the first episode, so I'm okay with them not coming back around to it.
Yeah, it doesn't not complete the story.
Yeah.
It's just, it just came to me that, like, okay, if that's not what really happened, then how did that happen?
So let's talk about how they did tie up a bunch of stuff. We're going to do both episodes as one story because they're directly connected to them, which is why I'm really glad they did this 2-part finale. Some people may not have liked the second one and why they did it this way, but I do.
Yeah.
It's a very unique way of telling a finale story.
Well, and the story doesn't necessarily, the finale, episode 9, doesn't directly tie into everybody's trip down the road.
Right.
It's this other thing that kept hanging over.
It
what
was,
happened with Nicholas
it was the
Scratch.
completion of Agatha and Billy's journey, and episode 8 was the completion of everybody else's journey with the bridge of what Billy Billy did.
Right.
So let's talk about the start of episode 8 is Alice laying on the ground, but it's
looking much fresher
much
than she did the last time we saw
her. She wakes up and she stands up, and Rio is standing at the doorway, and they have the conversation because death is not evil. death is just death.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
And just like I thought I had more time. I just got done with the curse. I thought I should be. Now I should be able to live my life and go do things. And Rio makes a great point, which gives Alice the okay, it's time to go. Which is, aren't you protection witch? Which is a lot of with your mouth. You gave your life protecting someone else.
Yep.
And as a protection person, that is the most noble way for you to go, is
right.
protecting somebody. You
right.
didn't go out like a punk. You protected Billy.
Right. Yeah.
And so Alice came to the acceptance of going.
Yep.
And they walked off into the green smoke. Hopefully Alice goes to whatever her version of the afterlife that makes her happy is. Like,
right. Right.
Pick a religion, and we get Agatha does some stuff on the road by herself where she kind of like has a breakdown. But the bigger part of that conversation is Jen and Billy, because Jen tried to reopen the Iron Maiden to go back and save Lilia.
Right.
And they have a conversation with the two of them in the little tunnel leading out of the knife room, the sword room. And in that conversation, they talk about Lilia decides to stay to get rid of the Salem 7 to save her coven. And it was her choice. And it was a very interesting it was short, but it was a very good reminder that the rest of the coven were all there for each other, or came around to being there for each other.
Right.
Except for Agatha. Agatha was always there for her, using both them as cannon fodder for death, as an agreement that she had with Rio, but also just because of what they show in episode 9, she's always been alone. She's always been attacked by witches from her first coven. So she has this thing on her that she feels like, I'm now projecting. They didn't necessarily come out and say this, but she doesn't feel safe around other witches because her original coven tried to kill her.
Well, and her power
is absorbing everybody else's power.
Is absorbing everybody else, so that almost makes her, an outcast. Like, I think even if she, there's a lot of, you can't put Agatha on a psychiatrist's couch and try to, because there's so much going on there.
Right.
But yes, she's been alone for a very long time. She, she was betrayed by her first coven and her mother. So she definitely has mommy issues. And then, she had a baby, begged death.
Had a baby, but also said, I made you from the original way from scratch. Which is how we get
Nicholas Scratch.
Yeah, because she didn't use an incantation. She
right.
went and found a boy.
Yeah,
had a kid.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then made a deal, or begged Rio not to take him right then, and then so now she's super attached to him because I think it said 6 years later. He seemed a little older than that, but okay. And, so now she's super attached to him. They have this little life together. They've made up this song. They're using it to bring in witches so she can take their power or whatever. And then he dies, so now she is all alone. So that's all she really has. So yeah, she's special.
But I just love that they addressed that in just a really quiet moment between Billy and Jen, and just that, Lilia made this choice.
Yeah,
and they in the scene before it, Rio pointed out to Alice that she made the choice to protect. So they both sacrificed themselves for the greater good of the group.
Right.
And it was just a nice little, like, yes, we're wrapping up some stuff here or whatever, but there's a like, they were there for each other. It was really actually them for each other. And then there's the Agatha stuff and whatever. But yeah, I really appreciated that they had that kind of moment of, I think without that moment, there's a lingering question of why did they sacrifice themselves, or why did these deaths have to happen?
Yeah.
Especially for Billy when he starts to come to the realization that he created the road.
Yeah, and Agatha even points out to him that, because he's very distraught that he killed all these people, and when it came down to it, Sharon was really the only one that he killed. I mean, he didn't kill her directly, but
Right.
It was kind of his fault in an indirect way that she was even there to get killed. But everybody else was, like, Alice was killed by Agatha, and Lilia, sacrificed herself. So it wasn't Billy that necessarily killed everybody.
The more I think about that scene and what they kind of did with it, it has so much lingering effects to everything else that happened in and around the previous episodes, and then this episode, and kind of the wrapping up of the story and everything. They finally, all three of them, get back on the road. They decide Agatha's in a mood, and she starts like, let's go finish this and get this over with, blah, blah, blah. And they takes a couple steps, and she trips over their shoes.
Right.
So the road is actually a cul-de-sac. It's a roundabout. That's a better way of putting it.
It's a roundabout. There you go.
And they have this, like, none of it's been worth it. We've lost 3 people.
Yeah. They all kind of have a crisis of faith at that point.
Yeah. And Agatha's like, screw it, we'll just go again until we get it right, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just do it. And Billy's like, no, I'm done. I'm putting my shoes back on. And he kind of tells the road off.
Yeah.
He puts his shoes on, and that's where we get the morgue-looking room. That's it. Why was
trial?
Why was trial was a better word too? So he wakes up in a body bag, which is it was a great transition. As soon as he put the shoes on, the screen went black.
Yeah.
It's black for 3-4 seconds, and then a little slit of light comes in, and you're like, oh, wait. Oh, we have to go back. We have to go back because Rio and Agatha have a conversation about she's getting her body, so it makes her happy.
Oh, yeah.
And Rio talks about Billy and how Billy is an abomination. She calls him an abomination.
Right.
Because he cheated death.
Yep.
And that it's not that he cheated death and is going to try to bring Tommy back, and there's abominations between the two of them. It's that she can't take him because of his abilities and who he is.
Right.
So he has to give himself up.
Right.
And Agatha's like, we'll trick him. I'll trick him into giving himself up.
Which I find kind of interesting because can they die? I mean, they weren't real to begin with.
Right.
So.
Right.
Can they die? I mean, apparently Death thinks they could die. Which is that's interesting.
Yeah, I very much liked that conversation between the two of them because it shows both of their motivations, but it also shows like there's something. This show is about Agatha, but ultimately the subject of the show is Billy.
Right. I don't say the MacGuffin because he's moving. He's the moving of the story, and he will continue. I mean, he's the thing the part that continues.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we get they come to an agreement that when Agatha dies a long time ago, time from
Time
now.
from now. About an hour.
Whatever. That Rio will not be the one that comes. Rio's face will not be the one that comes to get her. And then they agree, and then Aubrey Plaza turns around and walks through the practical set, gets to what looks like the edge of the forest, turns around, stares us in the camera with death's eyes, pulls her knife out, and cuts the matte painting of the wall and walks through the wall. I'm like, in the back of my head, I'm like, I know what happened that day. They realized that they had the shot where she walked off into the forest, but the forest ends like 5 feet from the road, and she's just like, I'll just cut the thing and go through it. And they're like, oh, that's a great idea, because it shows
she's cutting the fabric of reality.
Right. It shows her ability to kind of work through whatever realm that she needs to be in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go back to the morgue. We finally get Agatha and Jen there. In there, they start figuring out they have their personal items, and then the lights, the grow lights up on the ceiling, start counting down like a timer. So that was the light timer that a lot of people thought that was going to be this final trial. It come to find out that Jen, actually, the guy who tried to drown her at the 1820s thing, he wasn't the one that bound her magic. It was Agatha on
all along.
Right. On a whim to try to earn some extra money, and was the witch that was running around binding other witches so men in the 1920s could attack them.
Yeah.
And they have, she rips some of her hair out and binds her with it. And they have this, I don't remember what Billy called it, unbinding spell.
Yeah, it's like an incantation.
Incantation. And she gets released by just repeating, you can't bind me, you can't bind me, you can't bind me. And in that, she gets her power back. That all this Agatha, Catherine Hahn's face is just like the whole time, like laughing and giggling and whatever, and then the seriousness and then the sadness she shows, and then all of a sudden Jen has her power back and she disappears from the room. So This is the final thing.
Yep.
So then they figure out, okay, so we're actually here to figure out what it is that we want.
Right.
Agatha and Billy have this conversation, and Agatha says, we need to find Tommy. That's what you want. And he's like, I don't remember what happened. And she's like, yes, you do. And so they have this guided meditation, for lack of a better term.
Or she mind melds with him. I don't know.
Yeah. And we get the final moments before the hex comes down, where Wanda says, thank you for picking me to be your mom, and that whole exchange between Wanda and Vision as the hex was coming down, like that, but it was all voices in his head.
Yeah.
While Agatha kind of guided him through the thing, and then there's a blurred scene of a teenage boy drowning at the lake, with a group of friends who kind of play a prank on him, and that causes him to die. And Billy asks the questions, am I killing somebody so my brother can come back? Which is a very interesting question, especially for somebody like Billy, who can meld reality to his whim.
Yeah.
So, yes, but also no, because this child would have died anyways, just like William Kaplan was going to die anyways, and Billy projected himself into it subconsciously.
Right. It was more of a, I mean, and Agatha says, sometimes boys just die.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. I mean, I felt like, for me, I didn't feel like he was the one killing him. I felt like they were witnessing a situation that was happening at the time that the hex was going down or whatever.
Yeah.
And this was an opportunity for Tommy to
Yeah.
jump into a body.
Or Billy pushing him into a body.
Right.
Which is because,
Right, because because of his powers, and maybe, hey, this worked for me, it'll work for you.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that scene was super intense while the lights were flashing and everything was going on. The countdown was going on.
Yeah.
So Billy got what he wanted, and he cracked the floor, as he got projected out. And now Agatha's in the room all by herself. And she's been talking about getting her power back the entire time. But I think that's the thing that she told everybody. I think subconsciously she needed to forgive herself for Nicholas.
Right.
And she opened her pendant, and his hair was in there. And then the little seedling things from
daffodils.
Daffodils.
The poof from the daffodils. I don't know what you call that.
The things that you would pick and then blow, and then you have them all over your face because you would always blow it into the wind. And so she found one of those. She finds some water with her tears because she's crying because she's going to die in the final stage and not get what she actually wants, which is forgiving herself for Nicholas and everything. She plants it into the ground, and it like one light left, and it grows, blooms, and then makes the little daffodil poof. thing. Technical terms around here. We are both plant people. I think they're called
arborists
or botanists or something like that.
But no.
The lights all come back on, but she's still in the room. And the earth, and it starts to collapse around her, and she goes up the stairs, which had been proven earlier by Jen that it was welded shut. It was locked, or whatever.
Yeah.
And she banged on it, popped open, and it's the I call it the escape hatch, but it's the
cellar door.
It's the cellar door for her house. She pops out, and Death is there.
Yep. Dun dun dun.
And Agatha still doesn't have her power. Because it was never about getting her power. Her going on the road was never about getting her power. That's what she told everybody.
Right.
Because you can't trust anything that Agatha...
So I don't think Death had shown up yet when she came out of the cellar. It was just all stormy.
Yeah, but... Yeah.
Green. And she came out, and then Tommy showed up all Wiccan. You know, he's like...
No, they had that whole exchange... I'm here for you. I'm going to take you. I think I'm going to kill you by 1,000 cuts. And she breaks the window.
Right. Yeah.
And then she gets tied to the something. She gets tied with the it looks like rose vines because there was thorns on it. Whatever. She gets to die, and then Wiccan shows up in his full costume. Great costume. Amazing. We've talked about the costuming in this show the entire way. And he says to her, "Don't take all of it."
Right.
And he blasts her, and she, absorbs her power.
She charges up.
She charges up. But she cuts it off before he gets too much.
Yeah.
Which, again, I don't know. We're supposed to be rooting for Agatha here. And we do. And because of what happens in the next episode, she always sucks everything out of everybody.
Right.
But here she decides because of her...
Well, she's had an attachment...
That's what the word attachment was the one I was stumbling on, because room was too hard for me too, so...
She's had an attachment to him the whole way. And, it's Agatha. We have no idea what her actual motivation is for that. Is she projecting... Nicholas into him, like Rio said to her back in episode 4 or 5. It's not him. He's not him. Or is she was their babysitter, so she had a little bit of a connection to Billy and Tommy there.
Yeah.
Is she trying to get back at Wanda somehow, or I
have a theory about all that, but we'll get around to it.
Is it I got him and you didn't, you know, I
Yeah,
mean, there's,
yeah.
you don't know what, but she definitely has a soft spot for him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I really think that they handled all of that really well to allow Wiccan to be there, to be this big power,
Yeah.
to have him and Agatha fight side by side against death, and then Agatha saying, "You can't beat death,"
Right. It's got to be one of us.
It's got to be one of us. But at that point in time, I don't think it's a trick. I don't think it's her trying to pull the trick. It's her coming to the realization that death is always going to be there. Death is always going to come from one of them, no matter what happens.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so that line has a lot more depth to it than just we're fighting physical form of death,
Yeah.
but death comes for us all.
Yeah.
Which is the thing that Lilia said and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
And so Billy turns around and sacrifices himself because he's learned it from everybody else in the coven that you sacrifice yourself, and that
And Agatha was like, "Cool, bye."
bye. And she and they leave. She goes to leave, and Billy's face the entire time is like, "You, God damn it, bitch! Like I don't know what to do. I keep trying to be the
I
better
saved
person.
you. I gave you, you know, some of my power.
Yeah,
so
I give you a
could
charge
power
up. Like, what else do you want me to do?" But then he mind melds with her because he can
project.
he's telepathic.
Right.
So he's like, is this what Nicholas would want? This is how Nicholas died or whatever. And another example of using Nicholas as the thing to kind of bring her back. Like,
Right.
bring her back from the edge.
Yeah.
And so she turns around and instead of fighting death, she goes over and makes out with death. We've all been wanting it. It's about time. And then she, in the most graceful cinematic fall to the earth, which lasted 15-20 seconds, Agatha dies from kissing death.
Right. Death's kiss.
Death's kiss. And then instantly decomposes into a mound of flowers and mushrooms.
Right. Not sure where the
Because
mushrooms
she's
came
400
from.
years old.
Yeah.
But Death lets Billy go.
Right.
Because somewhere in that fight, she says, one of you has to die.
Yeah.
And so when Agatha makes the decision to die and do the sacrifice, again, the coven all sacrificing each other, themselves for each other.
Right.
Death got her body that she needed, and then we were just gone. So then Billy has to do the walk of shame out into the village because the village kept seeing the glow from the backyard, and they like, are we going through this again?
Yeah. Westview's like, this is another hex. What's happening?
I know I'm gonna get $5 for my house. I am moving to Central View or somewhere else. Not Manhattan, because it's just as bad there. There's aliens that show up. So they, or San Francisco, there's a symbiote walking around. So Billy gets in the car, goes home. His parents are like, you've been gone for 24 hours. Why are you covered in blood? Like, just let me get cleaned up. I'll explain everything. And he goes to his room and he starts putting his clothes back on from the most awesome steam shower ever, I'm sure, for him.
Yeah.
And he starts looking through the room. Now, some people have been pointing this out. And I think we started pointing it out like episode 5 or 6.
When we got the actual how did William become Billy, that whole episode where we actually got to see his room.
I think that was
way more in depth.
Because 5 is when he came out, Quitty Fingers. But 6, I think, is the backstory for William Billy.
Yeah.
And so they did a much more in depth look at everything in the room, and everything in the room was directly on the road.
Yep.
The tree, the Green Witch, the Wizard of Oz, the Witch's Road, the leaves, the shoes, everything. And he realizes, oh my God, I'm the one who did this.
Yeah.
I'm the one who created the road. I manifested it because I am my mother's son. Then Agatha giggles behind him and he turns around, and that's the end of the episode. I would have been ballistically pissed if that's how they ended the show.
Right.
With no, like, okay, we know White Vision is the Vision Quest is coming, but yeah, like, listen, you mother manners. I've already cursed once in this. I can't do it again. Episode 2 starts, and we get the backstory with Agatha and Nicholas, which we've kind of been touching on the entire time. But in that, they create the Witch's Road song to bring witches out of the shadows so that Agatha can feed on them, essentially.
Right, because they start, well, he's just being a kid and just making up songs while they're walking, because they're, homeless. They just kind of roam around, and, I mean, it's the 1600s of it all, right? So they're just roaming from town to town and getting, having him steal food or whatever. And so he's bored, so he's just making up songs. And they start to, like, they get the melody and the words, but they're not quite the same. And then it progresses to he's actually performing this song in taverns and stuff to make money. Right. And that the legend starts to grow, right? So then after she's
the original Bene Gesserit.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of in Outlander, there's a time when Claire, if you haven't watched Outlander, sorry, when Claire is kind of by herself with one of the Highlanders, right? And they're on the road. She can sing, and she's singing these songs that she knows of from the 1700s.
Right.
But she's dressed like a guy, and they're kind of on the lam, and they're going from town to town, and she's getting up and singing, and it does the same thing.
Right.
They become this whole traveling act that becomes very popular, except the whole thing is they're trying to be on the down low.
Right.
And so this really reminded me of that. They're going from town to town singing this song, and it's taking on a life of its own. And then after Nicholas is gone, she starts, being approached by people saying, "Have you heard of the Witch's Road?" And she completely takes advantage of that, and she's like, "Oh, we can get a bunch of witches together and we will do it." And so then we see that she's been doing this whole get a bunch of people together and open the door that's not actually going to open con for hundreds of years.
And I love the montage of the different times.
Yeah.
And the different outfits.
Yeah.
Again, costuming in the show has been amazing. The final modern one was very charmed, Buffy, 90s-ish. That I was.
Her in the kind of black, satiny, poofy shirt or whatever. Yeah,
it was cool. In that time that she gets to spend with Nicholas, something like little details that I was catching was she was always reading from her book, which is something that she talked about in WandaVision, is that she had to study and work on this. It wasn't something that came completely naturally for her.
Because she was covenless. So, you would learn from others around you.
Right. So she was constantly studying while they were on the road as they were working on this song. And Nicholas always had darkened eyes, like his eyes were always bloodshot and darkened because he was sick. It was something she knew that he was going to die at some point in time because Rio made the promise, I can give you time and that's it, because she did. Death did actually love her. Like it wasn't a fling or whatever. And Death taking Nicholas is why Agatha ultimately hates her.
Right.
Again, Death is not evil. She is just, she is part of the life cycle. Death comes for us all, except for Agatha in her strange ghostly form.
She's still dead.
But also in that section, Nicholas comes to an age where he wants to make mom happy, but he's tired of being the bait for mom for this.
Right.
And that's right after that is when death comes and takes him.
Yeah, he's kind of having. He's starting to get old enough to where he doesn't. Why are we killing all these people all the time?
And even Agatha, like in a previous scene, talked about like I can. Here's all the things I can do, but I can't do this, and I can't do this, and I can't save you from her.
Yeah.
And so like it was always hanging over Agatha's head, and because of the way they presented Nicholas, it ties a bow on the conversation we were just having about why Agatha was always so open to Billy, always willing to help him because Billy and Nicholas were very much of the same type of boy. Mm-hmm. Always caring, always looking out for the other person, always wanting to make everybody else happy. Like it was all presented that way. And I'm really glad, again, with this kind of 35, 40-minute post-credit scene of explaining that part of why this one, when she's killed everyone else, when Billy did the Google search and found Agatha, and in there it said witch killer, like she's talked about, she's like multiple times, she's like, I've killed,
right,
counting on her fingers, more than I wish to count.
My share. And just sitting here thinking about it, if you think about the Billy that was in WandaVision, the 9-year-old or 12-year-old, however old they were at the end, he looks similar to her son. So that could also be, she's kind of projecting him on him.
Billy's like, they have this whole conversation in Billy's room about the idea that he was the one who created it.
Right.
And
why are you still here?
And why are you still here?
I thought you were dead.
And she wants to lock it so she can move on to do whatever she's going to do in her ghostly form. But in that conversation, like Billy's like has a crisis of faith that he killed
everybody, on the road,
everybody, and Agatha's like kind of comforted him in Agatha's way that some of that was her fault, and also like I tried for so long to create this thing to happen, and then you were the one who did it,
right?
And that was the whole. And then they have the whole kind of conversation in there about you're so much like your mother, you have a tell, just like your mother, like all that whole kind of conversation. Billy's done with Agatha. Like he's done. I'm done with you. Ghost bitch won't leave me alone. So he drives back to Agatha's house where where he manifested the gate.
Yep.
And
it's still there.
And it's still there.
Which isn't good.
Like a 6-year-old's going to come over and open the door and he's going to be on the road. And he starts this incantation of banishing her to whatever, to death's hideout or whatever. Just
to the hereafter.
And she kind of laughs him off that he doesn't have the power to do that. She even calls him lighting the candles in the pentagram analog, and he lights all the candles by thought.
Yeah,
and she's like, okay, maybe not so analog, which was a nice little joke. She comes to the realization that he can do it. She swipes at the pendant. The pendant falls to the ground. In that, she says, I can't. How does she word it? I can't let him. I can't see his face, or I can't see him, or I can't let myself see him, something like that. And she has been avoiding death because she doesn't want to go see Nicholas,
right?
Which is something else, which is why she makes all these decisions. Now, this is my theory, and I'm 90% sure that this is why. When Agatha found out, Agatha was she put herself in the Hex in WandaVision. They never really say it. She wasn't living in Westview. She took over
Boner's house.
Boner's house.
Yeah.
So she was not there. The Hex happened. She got into the Hex because she's super strong and she could go through the Hex without any like ramifications, like Monica Rambeau. She set herself up because the Darkhold couldn't give her what she wanted. What she wanted from the Darkhold was... No, that's not right. What she wanted is that she wanted Nicholas back.
Right.
And she knew the legend of the Scarlet Witch. That's all what that big final fight is about.
Right. Was getting her to release the Scarlet Witch.
Because the Scarlet Witch in legend, in the MCU, it could create out of nothing. And that's what she did with Billy and Tommy. And Agatha saw that, and she wanted to get that power,
right?
So the Scarlet Witch power, so she can manifest Nicholas back into corporeal form.
Right.
And so all of this show has been about her trying to get Nicholas back.
Right.
That's what she wanted from the road, or her getting her forgiving herself for what happened with Nicholas. But she wanted Nicholas back. She didn't want her power back. She wanted Nicholas back.
Right.
So when she admits that to Billy starts crying because now it's all out. It's all laid out there in front of her.
Yeah.
She had a terrible mother. She had a terrible upbringing. She was an outcast because of who she is and what her power is.
Yeah.
She actually finally got something good in her life, but then he was never going to make it.
Right.
He was supposed to die in childbirth. Death gave her the worst thing ever, which was time.
Right.
Then from the point he dies and she wakes up and she buries him. And then the witch shows up with the...
Legend of the Ballad of the Witch's Road.
She was trying to get on the Witch's Road to actually get Nicholas back. That was her quest. And she was never able to open the road because it was it was a con. It ultimately became a con, but she thought she could manifest it into being like the Scarlet Witch did, but it didn't happen until Wanda showed up, and then she was going to take Wanda's power, manifest Nicholas back into being.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure that's what it is.
I like it.
And then they have this conversation about Nicholas and about like kind of Billy and what Billy is and what Agatha is and what they're going to do. And they kind of look at each other. I need a coven, you need a coven, even though you're in a gaseous state. A coven of two. I've killed witches, you've killed witches. And Agatha says, let's go find Tommy. And they walk out. And that's the end of the show. And such a bold choice to sit there and say, no, we're not done with this story.
Right. Well, we know that.
We know that now. We didn't when this show started.
Well, but we knew that Vision Quest was coming.
Right. But we didn't know that Jack Schaefer is writing it.
Right. Okay. Right. So
this is, and Paul Bettany came out this week and said Vision Quest is the third in this trilogy of the show.
Right.
Which, okay. I don't know if that was the plan from Jump. You always hope that the first one does really well and you can come back to the story or whatever.
Yeah.
This show did amazingly well. Everyone loved it. I'm very interested to see how everybody feels about this two-part finale. But I don't think they ever expected to go outside of telling the story of grief with Wanda.
Right.
And now they're going to tell the next story with Vision, White Vision, and him coming back to terms of being Vision. But also, I'm not projecting anything or trying to sit there and say that they're doing this or doing that or speculate in any way irresponsibly. But Young Avengers is all set. All the pieces are out on the board.
Right. I don't know if they'll do that with this one now, though, because I know that we've talked about this in the past because in the comics, White Vision is the leader or the adult in the room for the Young Avengers. But I just sitting here thinking about it. So WandaVision was ultimately about grief, and Agatha All Along is ultimately about grief. So
yeah, that's an interesting thought. Like WandaVision was about coming to terms with your grief, going through the stages of grief.
yeah, because she killed Vision.
And had him die twice on him.
Well, she killed him the first time. I mean, he died again, but she killed him because he told her to, because it was going to stop Thanos.
Yeah.
But then it didn't.
Yeah,
and so that was her whole the reason for the hex and all of that. And then, Agatha, I mean, it got brought up a couple of times in WandaVision about Nicholas Scratch. She even named the rabbit Nicholas Scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
And so this has been all about ultimately her dealing with that, coming to terms with the fact that she's not getting her son back.
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, it's very interesting because you could have the conversation with Vision about the loss of self.
Right, because he kind of, I mean, he
is Vision, but he's not the original Vision. But he's also part of the original Vision.
Yeah, but he's more, I mean, I think that at least in the comics and kind of the way he was at the end of WandaVision, he's almost a ghost of Vision. He isn't the feeling self, aware kind of, he's more robotic. So
yeah. I just.
But we're also talking about witches. So
yeah, and now we're going to talk about technology because Ultron's going to be in that too.
Yeah,
and
but you're going to have Billy and Tommy. I mean, if they find Tommy, so they're witches.
There's a rumor floating around that they are looking to cast a teenage boy for Vision Quest.
Right, so that would be Tommy.
That would be Tommy.
Right,
that makes the most sense.
So you're going to have two robots, and two witches.
Mutants.
Are mutants going to be in it?
Well, Billy and Tommy are technically mutant-ish, mutant adjacent, because Wanda's a mutant in the comic.
Yeah, but they don't really go into that.
They haven't gone into that, but
they're witches. Billy and Tommy are witches because
they're Billy's a witch. Tommy's the speedster.
Oh, that's right, because he got that from his uncle.
Right. That's why I said they're mutants. So I'm very interested about what the next what the third story.
So Vision Quest was not on the Marvel 2025 trailer that we just got.
They begin filming next summer.
Okay, so that's 2026.
2026, probably early 2027 at the latest. But yeah, I would think if they, I get the impression from what I've read and what Paul Bettany himself said that everything is ready to go. Like the scripts are ready to go. They're probably just working on sets and stuff, especially since they were so focused on practical sets in both WandaVision and Agatha. It makes the sense that they're going to do that too. But Paul was like, he's read stuff. He's very excited. He's very excited to work with Paul Schaefer. He loves the idea. He loves the direction the show is going. So that conversation makes me like, I have all kinds of questions. But there's also this one little voice in the back of my head where Paul Bettany also told us that he got to work with somebody he's always wanted to work with his entire life, and it ended up being himself.
Right.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Andrew Garfield on Not in Spider-Man 3. We obviously loved this show. We've talked about it every week. We've talked about it multiple times when we're not on camera or on the podcast. We've wildly theorized with our kids about the show, about what this could be, what that could be, where they're leading us. I did say in between the two episodes that I greatly appreciate that the road signs were there for those who wish to read it. This is a better way of putting it than I was putting it earlier. The road signs were there for those who wish to read it or those who wish to just ride along in the car were able to be surprised when certain things were starting to come out. And
right. You either kind of got the hints, maybe not fully, but you at least were starting to understand that a lot of the things that were in Billy's room were also on the road, and what does that necessarily mean?
We started questioning that right after that episode.
Yeah.
Like, did Billy...
Yeah, why? Because, and then, but then, Billy is almost the last to know, right? I mean, I don't think it's a stretch for people to...
I do like it when the audience, not always, but I do like it when the audience sometimes are ahead of the characters.
Yeah.
Because it's very interesting for my reaction to watch their reaction to learning information that I already know.
Right.
It's like watching...
Or that you thought you knew.
Or like you thought to know.
Getting confirmation.
It's like the book readers for Game of Thrones watching their friends watch The Red Wedding.
Yeah.
Who never read the books.
Yeah.
And so I don't always want that. Sometimes I want the sudden surprise of, okay, whatever. And I also do like hey, I speculated on this and I got it. Like I knew what was going on. I understood the storytelling that they were presenting to me, because some people don't. Like some people they speculate it's this, it's only this, and when they're wrong, they say the show is crap.
Right.
And this show was allowed you to be engaged in what was going on, to kind of speculate and have that conversation, but also to pull back and allow views who just, like I said, on the ride to kind of enjoy it and everything. And
I think it helped that there was kind of several stories going on at the same time. So while there were things that you could go, oh, maybe this means this, there was also the fact that they were on the road, and what does each trial mean, and oh my God, Alice is dead, and there was other stuff going on to kind of
distract you
and you're not just 100% going, okay, what does that mean for this? And you could do a little red string stuff over here, but then you've also got a really engaging story going on over here.
And I think that's something that they learned from WandaVision, because WandaVision was the first thing that happened after Endgame. But it was also during the pandemic, so none of us had anything else to do. So we were looking at
red stringing everything.
We were red stringing everything and taking huge leaps on things that meant absolutely nothing. And the creators later came back and said, like, you guys were picking up on stuff that we never intended for there to be. We were telling this story, and we wanted to leave hints as we went along in this format. But you guys were taking it to, like, made a left turn at Albuquerque. I'm like that's awesome. We really think it was cool that you did that, but you missed. No, you're supposed to go straight at Albuquerque and go up the goddamn hill. That's an I-40 reference for those of you who are still sticking around after an hour of us talking. But with the knowledge of WandaVision, with the knowledge of Agatha, I'm very excited for Vision Quest. Now they did not. So I've heard them calling it Vision Quest. It's the Vision show. We got the trailer this morning for what's coming for Disney Plus coming forward. Born Again, Ironheart, Wonder Man. Wonder Man I didn't know I was excited about until Yaya showed up on the screen. What If, Marvel Zombies. The
Wakanda.
Yeah.
Did you say that one?
I want to say the Reigns of Castamere, because I've got Game of Thrones in my head apparently. So we will be doing all this kind of discussion with all of those shows as we come along, and because we love the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of its interconnected storytelling, including the stuff that they're doing on What If. And I saw one TikTok today was breaking down that trailer. He's like, "What If totally missed," and I'm like, "You missed the point of What If."
Oh my God.
But if you find this interesting, of us discussing what we're seeing, being wrong, being right, and all of that stuff for two middle-aged people in a room full of toys, please give us a follow here on Spotify and on YouTube. It means the world to us that you do that and you share it with your friends. It costs you nothing. to follow
free.
us. It's free, and it means the world to us. And then we're on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Links in the description down below. We really greatly appreciate you guys sticking around with us for all 9 of these episodes and an hour of this episode, because there was so much to break down of 2 shows, 2 episodes, because episodes in the comments of comments of comments. I need to go edit all this together and go to bed, apparently. So thank you. And like I said, please subscribe to the channels. And until next time, cult members, good afternoon, good evening, good night now. And sing it with me. It was Wiccan all along.